I think it's pretty obvious we need to talk about the DKU versus Bradley Scott fight. Um, Not a great fight. Like, just on the level of what is a fight, this was not that. There are a couple of things that we need to talk about, things that I feel maybe are not being discussed. Now, I'm going to be a little bit more charitable than Ramsey Dewey was, and that's not to say that I even necessarily disagree with him. I, his perception comes from a place of consistent experience, and that's fine. I'm not at all saying that he's wrong. I just feel like there's a little bit more nuance to be had there, and he did admit to being fairly emotional about it. I also think that Joe and Brad were maybe being overly charitable, just to put on a good face and all that, and that's fine as well. But I don't believe for a second that uh, that they're actually feeling quite as charitable as they're putting forward. And not to call them dishonest or anything, I think they're just trying to be diplomatic, which is respectable. But I think there are three things that we need to discuss here. Three very important key things that actually went into making this fight what it was or what it should have been. And that is the format, the condition, and of course the conduct. Those are the three things that I'm actually concerned about, because we can all, if you haven't seen it, you can find the fight, and you've probably already seen it, or at least seen some highlights. And it is what it is. You can draw your own conclusions from there, so we don't need to do a play-by-play. So let's start about the format first, because I think the format is actually kind of an important thing. Should it have been an MMA match? Because it's what everybody else was saying. Like, should DKU have been challenging an MMA fighter to an MMA match? And I mean, the honest answer is, like, look, if he's trying to prove himself, if he's trying to do something and test himself, then yes. But because I think this is pretty clearly a publicity stunt, just something to check a box on his resume for, and not to say that he's not being honest about it. That's debatable, but I don't think that he was doing it for any other reason than he felt like he could get some clout from it. So when it looks like that, why would he choose a boxing match over an MMA fight when even what he trains spans a much broader range of things than just boxing? Well, I think it is, at least for the perception of things, I think it is simply for the fact that if he walked into an MMA fight with an MMA fighter, then he could very easily, and the fans know this, he could very easily say, well, I was fighting somebody in their own arena, and, he has more experience, and, and he's already got so many things that he can claim. He was saying that he was injured before the fight and couldn't use his left arm properly, whatever. If you weren't medically able to fight, then why did you fight? Brad's younger than him. Okay. If that was a concern and something that you were going to lean on, then why schedule the fight? Brad's bigger than him. Well, if that's a concern and something you're going to lean on, then why did you take the fight? Like, these are all things that if you knew ahead of time, then you have waived your right to complain about those things, because you said, essentially, what you have said by accepting that fight is, I believe I have a chance. I believe I have a chance to go in there and do something. Even if I don't believe I have a chance to win, I believe I have a chance to survive. And he did, much better than a lot of people expected. But the fact is that he was going into a situation where he was controlling the environment, where he had the opportunity to hand select an opponent. He happened to choose a guy who was bigger, stronger, younger, more experienced, and on top of that, going in with knowledge of his own, medical handicap. So that's all fine. He's waived that right. So then why is boxing a good opportunity for him? Because by limiting Brad's skill set and by essentially limiting his own skill set, they can both now say we were both limited. It's no longer tilted in one direction of the limits only go this way, the limits only go that way. Brad was also out of shape. He hadn't slept. He had a week to train because he was on vacation, for the first week because the fight was set up 2 weeks before it happened. So for DK to claim any kind of real handicap would be erroneous. So as far as I am concerned, despite the actual mass advantage, which is the only real clear advantage in this kind of fight, in this setup, the mass advantage stays. All of the other things kind of balance each other out, I think, because, you're literally talking about, a guy that's not even really fighting anymore. He's training people now, and not giving him a chance to prep, not giving him a chance to do any real kind of training. His sleep schedule was screwed up, and of course, his diet was screwed up. He was walking in overweight and out of shape. So honestly, the way I look at it is it was fairly balanced except for the mass advantage, and DK clearly didn't care enough about that to worry about it before the fight. So I think a boxing match was actually a good choice there because it allowed for a slightly more level playing field. And then the fight happened. And that's weird, right? It's weird because a lot of people expected this publicity stunt to come up against a last minute, can't do it. But it still happened, right? So it defied expectation already. He actually went through with it. And a lot of people were like, I have a lot more respect for him. Some people have recanted. But I'm going to maintain that I have a little bit more respect for him. Simply because he bothered. Even if he went in with the intention of this is just a publicity stunt and I'm just putting a feather in my cap and nothing else, he still did it, and that is more than most keyboard warriors are willing to do. So I do have respect for that. But then what happened in the fight? What happened in the fight, the actual conduct of the match, right? We talked about the setup. We even talked about the condition of the fighters. What actually happened in the fight was odd, right? So DK did not conduct himself like a boxer. Granted, Brad was very clearly holding himself back. And look, as somebody who learned boxing from kickboxing, anytime that I'm doing hands only, it is really, really hard for me not to throw a kick. And I find myself loading up for kicks all of the time, right? It is it's one of those things you have to hold yourself back, but it is very difficult to do so. But I think that's going to be important in DK's case as well. So when we look at this, what we're really seeing is this guy who's in poor condition, really fighting kind of lazy, really kind of carrying the fight. He looked like he was in for a sparring match. He didn't actually look like he cared enough about the opponent to put in a hard effort. And maybe it was because he knew he was out of shape and he had to conserve his gas tank because it was 6 rounds, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't really look like he cared that much about the match. He looked like he was out for a Sunday drive. Whereas DK was stressing out big time, which affects, your stamina. It absolutely affects your ability to think clearly and strategize. It affects your ability to throw good technique. And that's one of the problems, actually, with a lot of, I would even say a majority of the traditional martial arts community, is they very frequently fail to add the stress component, as well as the variability, the randomness of an actual fight. They fail to account for that. And that's a problem, right? That is a training method problem, not a toolbox problem. The toolbox might be fine, right? I say this all the time. The toolbox might be fine, but if your training method sucks, it doesn't matter how good the toolbox is. If you don't know how to use the tools you have, they're not worth anything. And I think that was very, very, very apparent here in this fight. So DK comes in, he's stressed out. Now, yes, you can say all of the front end things of, everybody was on DK's payroll. It was specially said, the judges and the ref were allowing DK to get away with things, all of that stuff. Is that the same thing as blatant cheating? Well, maybe. I don't know. I can't actually read anybody's mind. So I don't know what the intent was, beyond possibly simple unconscious bias. Now, I mean, there could be a conscious bias there. And there's almost certainly a conscious bias there, right? Everything is set up in his favor. But it also looks to me like you had a bunch of people who were very inexperienced at their jobs, a bunch of people who do not understand the proceedings of actual combat sports, kind of trying to put on a show like they read through the rules once, were kind of like, yeah, okay, I got it. And then that was it. That's what that looks like to me. So I won't say it was done in good faith, but I won't necessarily say that it was like maliciously, acting in bad faith, trying to cheat. I am willing to give the benefit of the doubt to simple unconscious bias. There may be some shenanigans. I can't discount that, but I don't know. The excessive amount of clinching. The excessive amount of clinching, whether or not you are pro or anti-clinching in boxing, the excessive amount of clinching is always a disappointment to see. And a large part of that is it shows that the person, one, does not know how to work the inside range very well. And two, it also shows that they're really just grasping at straws. Like, when you see somebody just clinching over and over and over again, what are you really, really seeing when that's not what the game of the sport is? What are you really seeing there? What you're seeing is somebody going, I can't do anything. I'm just going to ride this out. That's not good. That's actually telling you that this person doesn't belong in this match. They need to go back and train a little bit more. Now, there's also the matter of the blatant fouls, right? The backhand techniques and the headbutt. Was DK attempting to cheat? Was he trying to slip something in under the rules? Or was he just falling back on techniques that he persistently trains and simply has not been able to run through the filter of a rule set? Again, I don't know. I don't know if he was actually cheating or if he was just so stressed out, so outclassed by a guy who wasn't even in shape that he started relying on things that felt that would give him an edge without even running them through the filter of the rule set. People under stress do this all the time. I see this in sparring, let alone fighting. You see it all the time. You will establish out, this is the rules that we are engaging under. And inevitably, as soon as somebody starts feeling outclassed and their stress level starts rising, they start doing things that either start gray zoning those rules or blatantly go over the rules. And oftentimes it doesn't actually look like they're attempting to cheat and pull one over on the ref. It actually just looks like they are failing so hard that they are grasping at straws. So if I'm being charitable, what I'm really saying is DK was so outclassed that he was just failing harder. I hope I'm right on that. I hope he was not trying to cheat and pull something out, because I don't like that. I am very, very big on the concept of, if you have negotiated and agreed to a rule set, you abide by that rule set, because that is how contracts and honor work, right? You agree to something, and going outside of that, you are not acting in bad faith. it just means that you can't be trusted and that you're not worthwhile to have any sort of relationship with. So bad faith actors, reasonably speaking, should be ostracized. So I hope that he was not acting in bad faith. I hope that his stress response was just to fail harder. Now, the fact that the referee didn't call him on it, the fact that the judges didn't deduct points on it, that's a little more sketchy. They could be acting in bad faith, but again, they could just be extremely inexperienced. I mean, these could be just people that were like handpicked, read the rules once and go, yeah, I kind of got it. And, just run through in there. Again, I don't actually know. So being charitable, there's a lot of room for just failing and fucking up. And being less charitable, you're starting to look at bad faith, malicious conduct. And I hope it's not the latter, but we don't know. And we may never know. But here's the best part. Despite all that, despite Bradley being out of shape, he still very, very clearly won that fight. Now, look, if you've been around for any amount of time, you know that I am not a fan of point systems. I am not a fan of declaring a winner in the absence of a definitive finish, i.e. knockout or submission. I would even be okay with the 3 knockdown rule, which they have actually eliminated from at least from the unified rules of boxing under the ABC. But I would be okay with something that is more definitive like that. But scoring points, no, you just didn't fucking finish the fight. And if you didn't finish the fight, you didn't win, right? You might have been dominating, but we have seen enough like 11th hour, last second turnarounds. I'm not comfortable giving somebody a win just because they were dominating a bunch of rounds, because weird things happen. But regardless of my feelings on that, they were operating under a point system. And even with everything potentially rigged, with everything slanted so heavily in DK's favor, he still lost. And it was so clear that he was not going to win that fight except by fluke, because he was outclassed at every turn. He was knocked down. He was kind of bullfighter down, where Brad just stepped out of the way and he fell on his own face. Like, even despite throwing in techniques that were not allowed and Brad was not prepared for, things like that, even despite all that, it didn't go his way. It didn't go his way. So whether it was cheating or not, whether you want to make complaints about the condition of the fighters not being matched, whether you want to make the complaint about it being a boxing match instead of an MMA match, the fact is, with all of those things factored in, with all of the things that were slanted in DK's favor, he still lost. And I still respect him for stepping in and fighting. I still respect him for actually attempting to do the thing, even if it was a publicity stunt. Now, somebody brought up a comment of, like, I'll only respect him if I know why he went in to fight. I don't care about that. Your reasons for going into a fight are often one thing. You don't really know what you're getting to, and if you're talking your first fight, you don't really know, even if you've done hard sparring, you don't really know what you're getting into. And until you know what it feels like for somebody to try to take off your head, when you actually feel that harmful intent coming at you, they are actually trying to knock you out, they are trying to hurt you. Until you feel that and understand that, you don't know it. And I think people subconsciously kind of know that. And that is why it is so respectable for even somebody to go in and lose fight after fight but keep fighting. It is so much more respectable. So I will still give him respect for that, even if his intentions were not pure going in. What I'm more interested in is his reaction afterwards. Is he going to take the information that he gleaned from his experience in this one fight? Is he going to take that information back to his training go back to the drawing board and overhaul his training program to reflect new experiences. That is what martial arts is supposed to do. I disagree with Ramsey Dewey's distinction between a martial artist and a fighter. If you're not fighting, if you're not a fighter, I don't believe you're a martial artist. But, there may be some caveats there. But the point is that martial arts is, at the end of the day, about fighting. And I really do believe that the entire point of actually conducting yourself in a fight against a peer, a supposed peer, is so incredibly instructive and valuable, right? When I was doing some amateur competition, the reason that I fought was for me. I really didn't have any real desire to go pro. I mean, it was like one of those things, if I could get paid to do it, that'd be cool, but my goal was always to teach. It's just something that I have wanted to do since I was sophomore in high school is when I kind of settled on that and decided that. And, so for me, the idea of getting in there and fighting was, this is the final legal step for me to be able to kind of prove to myself that what I'm doing is working, and to give me information on how to make it better. Like, competitive fighting, in my opinion, is just another tool in the overall package of making yourself better. So if he is at all honest, he will go back, he will rewatch that fight a bunch of times, and then he will watch other fights. Maybe he'll watch Bradley's other fights. Maybe he'll watch other fights with people who purport to have the same kind of skills that he has. Maybe he will go back and he will start collecting data and try to figure out how to make all this stuff work. Now, yeah, he's an older guy. His viability in competition is not very high. But at the very least, he should be sparring a lot more. And at the very least, he should be doing stuff with people in his own age bracket so he doesn't have that as an excuse. That's my overall concern here, is he going to go back home and adjust his training accordingly? Because that's what you're supposed to do. Every time you have a fight, you go back and you adjust your training accordingly. Where did I fall apart? Where did I do well? Was something truly a fluke, or is something a repeated mistake or a repeated success? You have to find those things and adjust accordingly. And that's really all this is. So I hope that me being charitable doesn't turn out to be false hope. I hope that all of the things I've said up till now, I hope that he was just outclassed, was grasping at straws, made desperate attempts at some bad tactics, lack of experience showing through, all of that. I really, really hope that he takes this as a learning experience and that reflects in his training going forward. I don't think I have anything more to say than that. That's much more than I planned on saying, but I think it's necessary. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think about the fight? Leave them in the comments, and I will talk to you guys later. Good journey. Hey, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share, do all the other social media stuff. You can check out our other socials, as well as take a look at some of the merchandise that we have for offer in the links below. And if you happen to be in the Phoenix metro area, stop in, come in for a class, come in just to say hi. We'd love to meet you. Until next time, good journey.